Tilea's Troubles, Part 82. The Battle of the Isean Hills. Prequel, Each to Their Own. South of Urbino, late autumn, 2403. The army of the Disciplinati di Morr, bereft of its beloved founder, the Prepositus Generalis Father Caradalio, but still bound to the service of Holy Morr, had drawn close to the city of Urbino, then halted. When they learned the vampire Duchess had more than sufficient forces within the city to repel any assault they could launch, their new Pastor General, Father Lorenzo of Urbino, ordered the fortification of their camp so that they might instead blockade the city, harrying any forces attempting to leave the city or join the garrison, while awaiting reinforcements of their own. Fully aware of their depleted strength, indeed having sent her servant Adolfo to prey upon them and bring about this very end, the Duchess Maria decided she would not give them time to lick their wounds, nor allow any more forces to join them, but would instead march from the city in strength to deliver her colpo di grazia. On the morning of the battle, each of the two armies prepared themselves for the fight ahead. In the part completed, fortified camp they were building upon the Isean hills to the south of the city, the Disciplinati di Morr gathered for prayers, while in the fields below the ruined church of San Sabrella, to the east of Urbino's moated walls, the vampire Duchess Maria drew all the unliving servants contained within the city to her. The Disciplinati's new Pastor General Lorenzo was not the orator Father Caradalio had been, and so, instead of an inspired, stirring speech, he simply read from the Holy Book of Morr. A swathe of dedicants crowded around him, as well as lesser priests and Captain Vogel's palace guards, and all fell silent as he intoned. Father Lorenzo chose his passage carefully. While in Urbino, overseeing the cruel cleansing of the town, he had favoured the verses concerning the purity of soul required to gain passage into Morr's heavenly garden, and the punishments necessary for those who tainted themselves with wicked words, deeds, and thoughts, or lured Morr's living servants into the same. When the impure were burned, he had concentrated on the chapters describing the torments awaiting those who were not suitably cleansed either through their own will and discipline or by the punishments inflicted upon them as a curative penance. Here, however, before battling the vampire Duchess's foul army, he knew that something more uplifting was required. The men gathered around him were to face an unliving hell later that day, which made threatening them with the same seem somewhat redundant. He wanted to inspire them to fight fearlessly, to lay down their lives without hesitation, and so it was that he read of the abundant rewards awaiting them in Morr's garden paradise. Several priests, their hands clasped in humility, stood closest to Father Lorenzo. These few knew the text well enough to add their own voices to the most important parts, thus ensuring those words were better heard by all. Other than the priests' occasionally conjoined voices and the fluttering of the ragged banners, these fashioned from the tattered remnants of ancient saints' robes and other such holy relics, the only other sound was the occasional ripple of mutters and whispers through the crowds as they involuntarily voiced repetitions of this or that inspiring phrase. The Holy Book's words reveal that every drop of blood the dedicant shed in Morr's service would be amply compensated with heavenly wine, that long labours for their Lord God would earn them ages of ease, and that every moment of agony would be rewarded by eons of contentment. Indeed, those who were sufficiently holy in the here and now could experience the first hint of that eternal ecstasy within the very agonies of flagellation themselves, their pain tinged with the perfect pleasures to come. The dedicant's attention was given a keener edge by the knowledge of what they were about to face, and as they listened to the Holy Book's powerful promises, their fears were swept away and replaced with an excited anticipation. The more they suffered this day, the greater the rewards would be. It was all many of them could do, not to begin their flagellation there and then. Maria knew Lord Adolfo was dead, for she had felt his demise 2 weeks previously. As for Biagino, he had gone so far from her that although she could sense something was amiss, she could no longer know whether he unlived or not. Here and now, Her only vampiric servant was Captain Bernhardt, who was to be her lieutenant in battle. There was also a necromancer, Saphiro, a wretched fellow whose fawning company she could hardly bear, his blood so dry as to be undrinkable. His very being seemed to be composed entirely of mould, dust and rags. But even ignoring her distaste for him, such a creature would prove a poor second on the field of battle. Bernhardt, on the other hand, was very much a warrior, having been a condottieri captain in life, during which he fought both in the northern realm of the empire and all over Tilea. As her army assembled almost in silence, she beckoned Bernhardt over. He was clad in full plate armour and carried an enormous blade almost as long from tip to pommel as she was tall. It would take incredible strength to wield such a weapon, which luckily he possessed. When he came to halt before her, she said, "Good captain, faithful, favoured servant, your hand?" Despite not knowing why she asked, he reached out without hesitation. She laid her own hand upon his, her cold, pearl-white fingers resting upon the layered steel plates of his gauntlet. Now he understood. This action was a sign of her favour, that this day she honoured him above all others. As she looked at him, her eyes seemed just as palpable as her touch, and for a moment he forgot all but his fierce love for his mistress. All about them, the Duchess's undead servants became still, momentarily bereft of any directive will. Moving one step closer, Maria brought her mouth almost to Bernhardt's cheek. She spoke quietly, concerning what she expected of him in the battle to come, which was that he should give his all in her service. His sword arm, his military ken, and, if necessary, his life. She wanted the foe killed to a man, so not a single one could escape to reveal the nature of her own forces to her enemies in the south. Having been sired by her, and utterly beholden to her will, he willingly accepted all she commanded. He could do nothing else. Less than an hour later, near the head of the army, the two of them rode together towards the enemy's camp. Beside them were mounted warriors from ages past, doing in undeath exactly what they had done in life, but feeling neither joy nor sentimentality. Nor did they need such things, only the ability to fight as they had done long ago.